welcome to this CodeBuddies.org live code hangout. By joining or scheduling a hangout, you can ask questions, work through tutorials, share ideas, and pair program on open source projects. In today's live code hangout, we're going to continue working on our project for sustainable urban design. In the previous session, we've set up a documentation site where we're explaining the project goals at a high level, and we can kind of dig more into some of the design aspects. And it's a participatory project. There's not a concrete map at this point. So we're going to be co-creating that through these live coding sessions. But in short, the project is essentially inspired by city building games like SimCity, SimCity 2000, or City Skylines, where the player has intuitive and simple tools to build the city of their dreams or desires, and can think about and learn, concepts relating to urban design without having to know much about game mechanics or some underlying game architecture or things like that. You learn concepts like how to create utilities, how to make sure people have power and water, how to make sure there's adequate fire and medical coverage. We went to schools of various type, primary school, upper education, community schools, all that stuff you learn in an engaging way by developing virtual cities. Well, likewise, real cities need those elements as well. And not all cities are designed alike. A lot of cities, there's a large just organic element of the way cities evolve over time. But we have agency in the way we design our cities. And in particular, it's an increasingly important pursuit, or that we design our cities in sustainable ways. As the majority of the human population is going to be living in urban environments over the next decades, and so we have huge numbers of people whose lives are impacted by the design, whether it's intentional or organically emergent, of our urban spaces. So our goal here is to kind of make a game-like interface, but allow people to not only assess or analyze the design of their current living environment, but make hypothetical designs and run small experiments on how those designs would impact people's lives, like mobility, health, education, access to nature, other aspects of well-being, essentially. So the project is open source. You can find our code on GitHub. And in today's session, we're going to probably work a little bit more on the documentation. Hey, Max, welcome. I just saw your message there. We're going to perhaps make a small roadmap of some basic ideas for the project. Now, there's this cool book called Impact Mapping. And essentially, what this book is geared to do is help you focus on kind of stakeholder needs, human needs that are being met or ideally would be met by some intervention, whether it's a software tool or an organizational change. Not everything has to be solved technologically. Some things you can solve socially. A lot of things, in fact, most things probably social engineering or communication could be all that is needed to resolve issues and improve people's lives. So one of the ideas of impact mapping is that you kind of have some concrete goals in mind that you can measure progress against. So things like having a set number of users that you'd like to get, like how many you're at, how many you'd like to get. Max is ready to go. Oh, you got coffee and tea. All right. Yeah, I've just got my tea ready. That's good. Very cool. So Max, how do you want to collaborate today? Do you just mainly want to participate in the chat and have me do the coding and maybe come up with suggestions and I'll add those into the documents, or what would be comfortable for you? Yeah, okay, on the Python, that's good because the other important part is that we start this project. We kick off the project. Max, have you scaffolded a Django project before? And making a system for citizens. All right, cool. Well, that sounds like a great way to start. Let me go over to our GitHub repository and make sure you have access. Here it is. So have you already cloned the repository? Do you want to work in this app repository, or where would you like to work? Yep, perfect. All right, let's get you started there. I'm going to create a team called developers. How do you do this? I guess we're already... Oh, here's a team. And what this team lets me do is just assign permissions really quick to a group of people. It's kind of funny. I would imagine that it would just suggest the members of our organization first. Okay, that's fine. How do we do this? Oh, I see. Max is the admin. Okay, I had your username wrong. All right, so I'm going to... how do you just... Deriving Drunk and Max is the admin. All right, let me go over to the team. Developers. Getting used to some of the changes in the GitHub. Oh, there we go. All right, one moment. I have to mute and put in my password. Perfect. I'm probably being overly paranoid, but in any case, that's what I'm doing. So now we can go to these repositories and add one app. Add a repository to team. And you can read and write. I'm going to be a little bit protective of the master branch in this repository. So if you would work in a feature branch, we don't have to have any strict flow, but are you familiar with Git branching? I'm not sure what your level of familiarity is. Don't want to be too presumptive. Perfect. All right, good. Yeah, just go ahead and scaffold the app in a feature branch. Now, you said you already have some ideas you're going to develop, so that's cool. Did you create an issue with those ideas? I haven't reviewed the issues today. Yes. Perfect. So maybe you could start with that. Before we do any feature in the software, we should plan a little bit and discuss it in a roadmap. It's just a good practice. Because what essentially boils down to is writing code is one of the more kind of time-intensive parts of the process. And before you start writing code, there's ways to kind of validate and clarify ideas that are much less time-intensive, like creating diagrams, for example, or just discussing them in a chat. So that way we don't commit early to an idea that may or may not fit in with a project. And again, this project has a like wide open, it's green space. So most ideas I think would be welcome. But the reason I'm wanting to do an impact map is that helps you kind of focus in on ideas that deliver a value and get you closer to a goal. And the goal, well, we haven't defined those, but for example, the goals could be on a couple levels. One is for people who would be using this software tool, and two would be goals that the development organization has. Like a business might have goals of getting a certain number of users or a certain amount of revenue stream. So yes, if we start with an impact map, it might inform some of our initial features. So I'm not sure how to do this in a collaborative document, just the account stuff. So if you would, this is we definitely need this account. So let's just call that, so to speak, approved. Let's, we need user accounts feature. If you'll scaffold an initial Django app with user accounts, perfect. That way you can work in parallel. And if you would, define a custom user model. Because basically the default Django user model has some information we probably don't need from people right off the bat, like their first name and last name. Now, it also contains a username and an email field. Do you, Max, think we would want to have people sign up with both username and email, or would we want to use the email as a username? What would your preference be when signing into a new online tool? What are you comfortable with generally? Oh, wait. Both usually? Okay, so the default Django model is probably going to be pretty good. The other reason I think it's important that we define a custom user model right off the bat is it's hard to change a user model later. It's hard to switch to a custom user model later because it involves a database migration where you have to move data between tables. Whereas if you've already got a custom user model up front, you can modify that with just regular migrations, adding and removing fields and things like that. So if you read books like 2 Scoops of Django, they recommend you do a custom user model pretty early in the project. Yeah, that's a good point. So, and another cool thing about usernames is if you have social features, you can do mentions, you can @mention people like GitHub has. I suspect this platform will have social features, so usernames will be useful. So let's keep those around. I just don't think people would be comfortable inputting their first name and last name right off the bat. We don't need that information. So let me find a quick tutorial. But yeah, we need a custom user model here. And the thing, it's a little challenging to get off the bat, to get working out of the bat, but it's worth it, the learning curve. So if you have troubles, let me know, and I can jump in and we can pair program on it. I can join your local VS Code session, live share session. Cool, thanks, Max. I appreciate it. I'm gonna then, while you're doing the initial app scaffolding, I'll go ahead and start thinking about and defining some of these high-level goals and some approaches we can meet those goals as part of our documentation site. So these goals are almost at like the level of a mission. It's kind of fuzzy where the boundary is, but these impact mapping goals should be more like what they're called SMART, like specific, measurable, actionable, relevant, and time-bound. In a way, I don't know if we have to have that stringent of criteria, but I'll just create an impact document. And what was that, MK Docs? How do you serve it up? Serve? Yeah, pretty intuitive. Sorry, I'm getting a little bit of water here. All right, so I'm just going to look at the MK Docs documentation on how to write docs. And I'll need like a table of contents type thing to link to other pages on the project. And then we add a navigation. Setting to our YAML file. Then I close the online version because we're working locally right now. I'll assign this issue to you, Max, so we can keep track of it. And it'll be milestone 0.1. We don't have any milestones yet. So we're going to kind of follow not a super strict, but a relatively conventional development and collaboration workflow. So just go to issues real quick and create a basic milestone. And we'll add this user accounts feature. Do we have enhancement? Yeah, that way we start making a basic roadmap, and it'll, when we add issues to these buckets, it shows us the progress through each of the open milestones and things like that. All right, so it looks like we're up and running. I've got the main index page and an impact page. Impact mapping, really good. So close the sidebar. Yeah, it's really nice. It automatically refreshes it. Pretty cool. And if any of the chatters want to get involved with this project, we're on github.com/sustainableurbandesign. It's a participatory project. If you've got any ideas or suggestions, just let us know in the chat or open an issue on GitHub. If you're not comfortable or interested in using GitHub, I understand. We'll take your feedback in the chat, and we can add that to our sort of ideas list. And if it fits the project, we'll take that into development. Okay, so basically some of the goals, I'm thinking in terms of our project is going to be running online. It's like an online browser-based application. So we would have features relating to the browser-based application. So let's just say unique visitors. If you're running a browser, you want people to visit your site. Let's say a goal of 100, is that too high? 50? 50 monthly unique visitors. That's a little bit over a unique visitor a day. Might be a reasonable one to set for the 0.1 milestone. Yeah, I wonder if I should milestone these. I don't want to get too detailed. Yeah, I can help you. Is it a Django issue or what's going on? Let's just say 50 unique, 50 unique monthly visitors, 50 monthly unique visitors. Oh, I'm losing my grasp on English language. We want to kind of sustain that. Maybe this is specific and time bound. 10. We want to average 50 unique monthly users over 3 months. We want to average 10 monthly contributors over 3 months. That gives us a little bit of a roadmap. And we'll unpack this a little bit more. You know, unique visitors, I think it's kind of self-explanatory. It's people actually stopping by the app and using it. But it's going to imply some features. We have to be able to measure this metric and compare, so track it over time, firstly. And then we will want to kind of brainstorm, basically divergent thinking, coming up with multiple ideas on how we might attract, you know, people to the site, and compare and contrast those ideas. You know, think of how difficult they would be to implement, and they could be social ways or technological ways, like, you know, just simply recommending your friends to visit the site. You know, so that's the point, is we have some goals that are tangible, and then we can kind of find ways to solve them. Contributors in here is a little bit, you know, less defined. Somebody contributes to a site might be obvious. They contribute content or something, but what kind of content will people be contributing to this site? There's already a feature I've got in mind for this, but let me just make sure I get back to Max real quick. And not understanding the username part. Yeah, that's cool. Let me think here. It would almost be helpful if I could see your code. That's where that live share extension comes in handy, doesn't it? Do you have, Max, do you have the VS Code live share extension installed? I can just hop over into your project. And let me see if I can find a tutorial here. I think there's a really good one. There's this blog called Simple is Better Than Complex. Custom. And this author has all sorts of great tutorials, really clear, fairly recent in most cases. What we're kind of doing is extending the custom user model, but we're going to define our own. So Vitor Freitas, I think he's Portuguese, from Brazil. Oh yeah, he speaks Portuguese. And we will probably want this, option 3. And this is the point, is this should be done in the beginning of a project, so this is right when we should be struggling with this. All right, thanks. I'm going to hop over. I'll open a new VS Code session. Maybe for simplicity, we can go with option 4 here and see how it works. And if it doesn't, so just click the take me to the instructions here. We kind of want, honestly, to use option 3 and just get rid of the first name and last name field. But you can keep the username field. So you'll basically just create a character field. That's a little tricky, but you can. I know you'll be able to pull through this one. It's just a learning journey. And the cool thing in VS Code, as you know, but I'm just going to mention it. You can just, I think it's F12 is my keyboard shortcut. Go directly to abstract base user, and I'll do that in just a second when I join your session. And look at the field definitions there. So let me get this other VS Code up and running. A lot of what we do as developers is just kind of troubleshoot, read documentation, try different approaches. Sometimes you hit a brick wall and you just need to kind of come back at it from another angle, or sometimes you just got to give up and just admit defeat a little bit and sleep on it, see if it's even worth your time. Sometimes you can just let go of an idea as well, but this case is we're not really having a lot of trouble. Sorry, I'm trying to connect to your live share. Something that started my own live share, but I want to connect to your live share. Try that one more time. And I'm doing this off stream so I don't expose your private live share ID. I hope it won't. I can't promise that. I don't quite know. Live share. I want to join a collaboration session. I think I've got it in this whisper over here. There we go. All right, looks like I'm joining now. I see you've got the app repo open, and you're on the VS Live Share welcome page. Got a chat. You got models.py open over here. You're already inheriting from abstract base user. Good to go. It looks like if I'm getting a bunch of little errors and messages in here. I'm going to bring the live share in the VS Code over to the stream window. I don't think it's got any personal information here. I just need to select my Python interpreter. Did you create a virtual environment locally? Doesn't look like you're running this in a virtual environment, are you, Max? Okay. Because usually when you activate it, have you activated it? Basically what I have now here is your shell. I can see, everything that you have running. The computer is the main client. Now, manage py is empty. That shouldn't be the case, should it? Did you delete manage py? And okay, so yeah, we got a couple of things we got to do. We got to step back a little bit. Yeah, no worries though. Okay, cool. Yeah, no worries. Okay, let me just think for 1 second. We're gonna have to, I think, reboot just slightly this project. It might be the easiest way. So we need to do 2 commands, 3 commands at least. Generally speaking, you'll create a virtual environment first and activate that. Then you'll do your pip install Django. Should be enough. I should pull in the everything needed. Then you'll do Django start app, and then once you've got start project. Once you've got a project scaffolded, then you're going to create an app and call it users. Because what we've got here, this structure we have is it's flat. This is our repo. This is the root level of our repo with the license and everything in there. And we shouldn't be defining our models here. So I can see why that would be a little bit difficult. Yes. Cool. Now we're in a good. We're in our virtual environment. So if you don't mind, I'm just gonna delete this models.py. Is that cool? Well, maybe you can do that. And what's main.py? That's not something that Django made. We don't need that. It's we should use the exact file structure Django does when it scaffolds it, which would be there should be a under init.py here. So, and what's sud? That's our environment. Okay, and we're going to put this in our git ignore. Good. And it's conventional to call that just env. If you look at our git ignore already, it's got a lot of stuff in here. It's just a default one. You know, you see it's going to ignore our database, SQLite. We'll use SQLite as long as we can. It's going to ignore the journal file when we're writing to SQLite. When we're doing transactions, it creates a journal. If we want to do some IPython. So this is the default GitHub Python git ignore file. And the key thing is I want to highlight here is these are the conventional names for environment. So sud is not a conventional name. And it's okay to not follow conventions. It just makes things a little bit awkward, and you we'll just have to put your environment name into the into the git ignore file. We don't want to check the environment into Git because it's huge. And as you can see here, did you already add sud to the git ignore, or did it just know to do that? Because no, here it is. You can see right here, Git is already picking it up. All these changes to 20 files, which is not so bad, are coming from sud. Oh, okay, what did you do? Okay, so I'm going to read on the journal. No worries. Okay, so the name of the virtual environment, in your command you have this Python. I'm going to type the command. So it would be this. Python -m venv is the kind of module. And then you just type in, for example, the environment name is env. Run that command. Let's just back up one more time. I know it's a small detail, but yeah, there you go. Or what? No, you need that second argument. The second argument is the environment name. So venv is the command. No, we don't want sud. Why do you want sud though? Is there a reason why you want to call it sud? That I'm just maybe I can get over and just. It's not a big deal. All right. Well, so there's not a reason you want to call it sub. Just paste this exact command in and exit the sud. So exit here. And then type the Python-m venv space env. Let the env just called. Let the environment be called env. That's more conventional, slightly. Any of these would be sort of conventional. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and just get 2 windows up here and continue here. So we want impact mapping. We want to encourage contributors. And they need something to contribute. That's the thing. It begs the feature. Yeah, just, okay, you have to have Python 3 on there. Okay, yeah, makes sense. Yeah. And you should be able to just delete the sud directory, and then you do your same thing, source env bin activate. The same thing you did previously, pip install Django. Cool. All lowercase should work. Cool. And we'll want to do a pip freeze here in a second. By the way, have you worked with poetry or pip env? Pip is fine, and it'll take us quite far just using pip in regular virtual environment. Okay, so we've got just a warning there. Yeah, go. I don't know. Yeah, that's fine. Let's not get too complicated. Let's keep it simple. So now we've got your virtual environment, and do a pip freeze to requirements text, and we'll go ahead and commit that. So now, and delete models.py and revert manage.py. Discard the changes to manage.py. Leave that exactly as it. We shouldn't touch that file probably ever, but maybe, yeah. So I would just revert these changes. Are you sure you want to delete manage.py? Oh, I see. You didn't scaffold the Django project. I see what's going on here. All right. No problem. Go ahead and delete those projects. Those files, and we're going to do this the proper way. We're going to run a Django command. Yeah, it's cool. No worries. So just delete those files and run Django. I think it's Django-admin should be now in your environment. I'm having to do a lot of guesswork here, but because I have a read-only shell down here, and I'm cool with that. I want to be the pair programmer today. See if you've got Django-admin, and you should have tab complete on some of these -admin. See that? You know the tab complete on Mac and Linux, probably Windows. You can hit tab, and it'll save you some keystrokes. Give that a try real quick. And it's also a good way to look around and find commands that you might sort of know what it is, or Django core commands are listed. Yes, so just Django admin will print off the help text, and we want to run this start project command. So Django-admin space start project, and it's going to create in a subfolder, and that's cool. We'll go with the flow on that. Let's give the project the name. It's kind of a long one, but just the full name: sustainable_urban space _design _space, because it's going to use that in a few places in the app code, and it's a little bit difficult to change later. It's not impossible, but yeah, it creates some hassles. So the project name is all lowercase _, sustainable urban design space. Use underscores though it can't have spaces in there. All lowercase. Sorry if this seems a little nitpicky, but it's just kind of a little bit of a stickler for convention and stuff. So, and yeah, it looks good to me. Boom, that'll give us a proper scaffold. Then we'll create an app. You can call it accounts, you can call it user. I'm kind of flexible as once we get into feature development and stuff like that, as long as we follow Django conventions in the way we structure our apps and stuff. And if we write clean code, that'll all come out in the process of development. Cool. So now, if I close a couple tabs here, models.py. If I refresh, Explorer, aha, we see our folder name. It's a long project name, so that's the thing. And now we see manage.py has got all this good stuff in there. Great. So now we're going to run another. Go ahead and commit that. Just say initial project scaffold or something like that. And we also need a pip freeze. So you need to freeze the requirements. So I think it's pip freeze, pip -- freeze greater than to pipe the output requirements.text. This is all pretty conventional. And that's going to give us a snapshot of what's installed at this point in time, and you can commit all these changes. Because we've got a base camp here. We've got a safe spot. If we need to fall back, we can fall back to this point and try our ascent again. And I'll get a little bit of tea. How are you doing? You got your tea? Is your tea still warm, Max? Or are you still working on the coffee? Let me just think for 1 second. If we want to run it in the base directory, if we want to run it in the subdirectory. It probably should be in the directory where you're going to create your virtual environment. So it's, yep, you got it. That was actually correct. I'm sorry, I didn't notice that. Pip freeze, a pip -- freeze. And when you're in bash or whatever command line Unixy shell, you can use the greater than operator to take the output and put it into something else. It's a little bit different than the pipe. Pipe will pipe it into a command, but that's the less than operator. The greater than operator kind of like points to the right because it's, this would be called requirements.text. This is just a standard thing, convention, requirements text. And you'll see it's in our git ignore. So I'm not just making this stuff up. I'm not trying to give you hassle for no reason. Conventions are pretty important. In the oh no, it wouldn't be in our git ignore because we have to check this in. So this is good stuff. No such option. Must not be with dashes. Just try it without the dashes. Settings JSON. And we should probably ignore the VS Code folder. I think I'll just add this VS Code folder to the git ignore. This is pretty conventional to ignore your IDE, and the default Python git ignore doesn't include VS Code IDE folder, or any IDE, I guess. I thought it had at least PyCharm. Yeah, so let's go ahead in this file. We're just going to add an ignore rule for VS Code. And we probably need to remove that. Yeah, go ahead and commit this gitignore file and just say ignore VS Code, ignore.vs Code or something. Oh, are you there? Or I guess you were doing those commits, weren't you? Okay, got it. I see the changes now. Very cool. Now we're going to run another Django command. We've got our Basecamp set up with a fresh project. This file's been deleted, so I'll just close the buffer. Now you'll do, you can either use your Django-admin command, or you can do like Python 3 space manage.py. We're going to start app. Apps should, by convention, let me think for a second. I should grab our reference material. You use a pluralized name of whatever they're representing in a way. Unless there's multiple entities, like a store would have a singular name, and a store could contain certain entities, like items. So we're going to run start app, and we can call this accounts or users or something along those lines. We're going to create an app where you'll define your custom user model. Yeah. Let me just double check. Yeah. Right. Yep. So as soon as you run that command, it'll create a new folder in there. Yeah, make sure you're running that command in the same directory as manage.py. That's a little bit of a gotcha. You're in the app directory right now? I think, let me double check, where is that? Your current directory is, yeah, so we just need to be, yep, that way Python can find it. There you go. Cool. And now it's going to scaffold the users app and give us some basic files. The admin file is for registering this model in our Django admin. Apps.py has some metadata and lets us override. Users models is where you're going to define your database model here. And we probably don't need to write any test reviews. We'll try to get in that habit, but for now, let's just get the model going. All right. Yeah, I would recommend using Black, the Python linter, AutoPep8 or Black. I think they might play well together, but we use Black at work, and it's pretty good. We don't fight too much about the linter. We kind of just try to move past that decision as quick as possible. And I think we can override specific settings if they're getting annoying or something. Like specific Black settings. Black is an opinionated code formatter for Python, just for shared reference. And I guess it's sort of been endorsed by the Python Software Foundation, even though it has been known to contradict some of their style guides from Pep8. I think I'm not sure much of the details, but some of the Black rules might be, like the line length rule, I think is one of them. 88 maybe. It exceeds 80, which is the recommendation. It's weird stuff. Linting, it's just best not to spend too much time on it. Yeah, and then if we want to override it, you just kind of set up these. So yeah, for anyone wanting to know a little bit more about black, I will just post a link in the chat. There it is. This will hang out on the video as well. Okay, cool. So let's go ahead and take a look at this abstract base user in our models.py. So I'll kind of help out a little bit. Where did my IDE go? Oh, dang. That's the wrong one. Yeah, so we'll just go ahead and import this abstract base user. You can go ahead and do it from django.contrib.auth.base_user import abstract base user. Yeah, and be sure to use your tab complete. Yep, dot type like a letter and hit tab. Dot BA tab. There you go. It just saves you a lot of time and typos. Most importantly, you avoid a lot of typos. And yep, perfect. All right, now you might just save this file real quick. Then you click on this abstract base user definition and hit F12. And it jumps you right to it. This is a really powerful thing. So all this is going to come with is a password and a last login. All right. And a bunch of methods. So definitely those are good methods. It's good to inherit. But we don't want to lose the email field necessarily, right? The other way is to set the field values to none for the first name and last name. Yeah, so basically, it's not clear. I think we can inherit from the abstract base user and use this example from simple is better than complex. Mostly you're just copying and pasting. We'll need to define a user manager. And instead of using the email for a username, we'll want to collect an email, but we can actually define a username field, which is a character field. And I was kind of curious what the default Django user model fields are, so we can just be as close to that as possible. A username field. So yeah, just use username. And it's got some validation. So let me think here for a second. Django contrib models user. Why don't we just do this? Here's another idea. Tell me which one you think sounds better. We can define our custom user model from django.contrib.auth.models user and just override the first name and last name fields to equal none. And that'll just get rid of them. Unless you think we want to keep the first name and last name fields, in which case we can just leave it totally as it is. So here I'll just type this in the IDE real quick from Django, and I'm not getting the nice autocomplete. There we go. There it goes. Oops. Models. Let's take a look at the difference here. We've got user and user manager. We're going to need to define both of those. But if you go to the definition of user here, by clicking on the user symbol and hitting F12, It's inheriting from abstract user. So let's go to that one. F12. Here it is. And you can see it's got a bunch of stuff, including the username field, first name field, and last name field, email field, whether they're staff, I don't know if we need that, whether they're active, that's good, date joined. It's got a user manager. Most of this stuff is good. We're just trying to drop off, we're trying to do two things. We're trying to create a custom user model so that we can change it easily later, and we're trying to maybe not collect too much information. I don't believe we need the first name and last name fields. So I think what we can do is, whoops, basically where your cursor is, we'll just type a and then I'll say it's going to inherit from user. I suppose it could inherit from abstract user. And we're just going to drop off these fields. Like that. And everything else is going to be fine. When you inherit from a class, you get all of its, its DNA or whatever, you get all of its inner workings, and you can just kind of selectively override or drop the parts you don't need. And I believe if we just do this none, that's the way we drop a field that we don't want from a base class. The other thing we need to do, since we're creating a custom user model, is go into our settings.py. So the settings for the app are in this scaffolded folder, Sustainable Urban Development Design Space, settings.py. And we're not working on a branch, I just realized. Darn it. Where are we? Where's your, do you have a branch created locally? I don't see it, I just see my locals. You do? All right, good. So, go ahead and do a quick push. Push your branch up to GitHub, and let's, I'll just get a, okay, and it's active. It should say in VS Code, though. VS Code should recognize we're in a Git repository, and it already has, obviously, been tracking our changes. So, we're in the features branch. Perfect. All right, so just do a git push real quick, and let's get this feature branch on GitHub, and I'll open a pull request, and we'll continue doing the work. We're at 1 hour in. I think what we'll do is just get this basic user authentication working and register with the admin, spin up the server, log in, and just do a brief PR review, retrospective, kind of reflecting on what work we've done, and call it good. Kind of on the development part, and we can just discuss a little bit more some ideas for the project. We'll create a couple of issues for a basic roadmap. Should be about like 30 minutes. It's Sunday. Let's kind of relax a little bit and enjoy our Sunday time. Cool. So the next thing, did you do the push? It didn't show up down here. Let me double check on GitHub. Okay. Are you in a fork? No, you didn't fork it. We have two branches. Yep, you did. I see it. Sorry, I'm just a little bit slow sometimes. All right, so I'm just going to all open the pull request here. Yeah, perfect. Whatever tools you're comfortable with. And we'll just call this, I'm going to call this user account, because we're going to try to keep our feature branches down in size and our pull requests focused on like adding one little kind of cluster, like something it's all related and easy to review. So I'll just call it user accounts. I'll create the pull request here. Actually, do you want to do this? I think, to be honest, this is why we're doing this. So just hop over here. And just open a pull request with your branch. And call it whatever you want. Start getting in the habit, though, of giving meaningful titles and descriptions to issues and pull requests and feature branches. Like, by meaningful, I just mean more specific to what you're working on. Obviously, we didn't have a plan, so we didn't know what features we were working on here, so this is cool. But now we know that this pull request consists just of our user accounts model, and that's good enough. That's already substantial start. So I'll go over here to pull requests. We got user accounts, PR open, yeah. And there's your commits. I will go ahead and assign myself as the reviewer here. Oh, I don't know the difference. And we don't have to tag with milestone or get too fancy. Woohoo! Adding the user accounts. Files change. There's a lot of files changed because we also scaffolded the app here. So great work setting this initial app up. Okay, so then we'll go back here to the tutorial, and I think we just need to change the setting. And we'll create forms and stuff later. We don't have to work on the front end part of it today. But I do want to just verify that we can log into the admin user. So go ahead and open up settings.py. I'm going to close out. And I think it was just here in the Django documentation. Where did I put that? Alright, so I think the setting is just user_model. Django's pretty well documented. It's really a mature project, and they put a lot of emphasis on making it developer friendly. This is where we were earlier. Authentication backend, substitute custom user model. Here we go. So I'll send you this link here. We're going to create this in settings.py, so go ahead and open that. I believe I'm following you. Let me make sure I'm following. Yep, you're already there. So I will say follow participant, so I'm not losing track of you. Create a all uppercase auth_user_model, and that should equal our app name, which is users dot user, capital U, the class. Yeah, and here's again, if you're starting a new project, it is highly recommended to set up a custom user model, even if it's the default user model. Which is essentially what we did, and we just dropped off. Well, abstract users, is that the one? Maybe I should have just done abstract user. We haven't run migrations yet, and we haven't committed this. Let me just double check. Okay, so yeah, I'll just fix this. This is my bad. We just need to inherit from the right class. So the documentation recommends we inherit here from abstract user, and we're not going to use abstract base user. I'll save this. What do I name it? Okay, let me hop over there. You're in the settings.py, right? Yeah, so it's auth. Yep, you got that right. And then put quotes. It's a string. And, oh, here it is right here. Looks like this. You can use single or double quotes. I think being consistent is good guidelines. So they're using single quotes in this file. Yep, so you're good to go. And the first part is the app name. So what's the name of the app that we created? I'll go ahead and type the name of the app. And then the dot. And Django is going to know by convention to look inside the models file inside this app for a class that we're going to tell it here. So go ahead and, I'm not sure if you're typing and I'm getting lag or what. My laundry's done. Oh, there we go. I'm sorry. The app is actually just users. That is a bit confusing. The project is like this high-level Python module, and so that's sustainable _urban development. Then within the project directory, there's another sustainable urban development directory, which is like a config type thing. Then we have an app that we created. Yeah, so that's actually you're perfect. That's exactly what you need to do. And our model is called user with a capital U. And autocomplete might work here. No, I don't think it's going to work here. This is a string. It's save. Yeah. Good. All right, save that. You got. I think you might have a missing quote on the right-hand side. We'll worry about these kind of security things a little bit later. All right, save this file. And now we're going to do a couple of commands to set up our database. We're going to run a management command. Both of these will be management commands. We're going to create migrations first. We have just sort of defined our own users table, so we need to create a migration. So it would be Python space manage.py space make migrations. All one word. Yep, all lowercase. And migrations are essentially changes to a database structure from point A to point B. So I just realized Django's not going to know to look for our migrations because we forgot one other key step. And this warning is telling us this model has not been installed. And the reason this model has not been installed is because we also forgot another setting. So we need to register this new app that we created with the Django framework in the settings up high. I'm looking for, here it is, installed apps. So in settings.py, inside of this installed apps list, create a new entry and single quoted the app name, the folder name for the app. Yep, perfect. Okay, now that we've done that, Django is like, oh, okay, I know there's an app here now. Oh, I can look in here, models.py. I know the conventions. I can make these migrations now. Everything's groovy. Okay, and did you save the file? Users. Oh, I'm sorry. It's users plural. That's a typo there. All right, cool. Fixed it. Now go ahead and run the command one more time. Yeah. So noticed that we've created a new model user. It doesn't, inherently know that this is the user model. The migrations framework doesn't, but Django does because we've defined it here. So once you've run this command, you see we've got a new folder here called migrations. And again, a database migration takes like a data model from one point in time and adds or removes some part of it or modifies some part of it. So what we've done is just added a new table. And these migrations have to run in a particular order because oftentimes they'll depend on table structures that change over time. So Django has some default migrations that have been defined. So our first migration just kind of stair steps off of that, and we created a new model called user that inherited a bunch of fields and functionality. So we didn't have to write much. Got all that for free. Now all we need to do is just run one more management command to actually migrate the data structure. We've not run this before. So it's just Python. And you might be able to just type /manage.py without the Python prefix. You can try that on your Mac and save yourself a few keystrokes. On my environment, I have to say Python every time, but yeah, on some places, yeah, it'll just know that this is a Python file because of the header in the file. And the command we want to run is migrate. So this is actually going to run all the migrations, so all the Django core migrations and our user migration. Here we go. So we'll see a bunch of stuff spin by. And even our users migration wasn't the last one. It looks like admin and sessions came in a little bit. I'm not sure the order of these, how it works. All right, so now we're going to do the fun part, which is play briefly with the Django admin. In order to access the Django admin, though, you're going to have to create a super user. So here's another management command. So /manage.py space create super user, all one word. And it's going to walk you through the process. It'll use our new user model, so it's going to ask you to fill in each of the fields. I'll go ahead and move this off stream, just in case. But basically, when we're in a development environment, don't use any of your sensitive passwords or your private email, things like that. Very oftentimes could get exposed, or if you're live streaming, it's easy to make a mistake. So yeah, just whatever you want here, just some throwaway stuff. Just something you'll remember. Make sure you can remember it. Otherwise, it's not a problem, though. You can just reset the database. You'll have to just run through these steps again. And again, I've got this off stream, and your password's not showing up anyway. Yeah, and bypassing validation is fine. Yeah, because again, we're in a development environment. This isn't deployed. So yeah, the cool thing now is we'll run one more, I guess, management command, and that's Python, or just manage.py space run server. That's going to get you set up. What do I put up to the dot? I must have missed that earlier. /manage.py run server. Cool. Good to go. It'll run it at port 8000, and I can view it in my browser, which is crazy. This is the cool part of it. It looks like it's going to open up a new browser window for me. No, open in a tab. So, wow. This live share is pretty rad, and we could have voice chat if you're comfortable with that sometime as well. It's a little easier than typing, but and also a little bit of latency when I talk on this stream. It takes a while for my voice to come through. Yeah, and there's no pressure, so if you're not comfortable with that, that's cool. But I'm glad that we hopped on this live share because it's made it a lot easier for me to see what you're typing and things like that, and I can make changes as well. So the cool thing now, and it ran it on a strange port. Oh no, that's probably because it's I'm tunneling somehow. So if you go to that localhost, probably /8000, and it's type /admin. And you can sign in here. I don't have a super user account, but if you log in there and then create me a super user, we'll just spin through the admin interface real quick. Probably need to register our user model with the admin interface. We have a few files that have changed. We can commit those soon. And one good practice is not just to commit all your changes in one kind of big commit, but take your time and see which changes are similar. Make sure you don't accidentally commit something, especially that happens. And give your commit a descriptive name. For example, you could kind of just say, you could commit all three of these files together. We basically created the custom user model. And that's probably granular enough. It ran on the live stream port. Yeah, I'm not sure. It's good to go that I'm able to access it. And are you able to log in with your newly created super user account? Nope. Okay, it was capital A admin, and then your hopefully not super secret password. Yeah, so the username is case sensitive, and the password is case sensitive. Hey, look, I see that you were able to log in. You're in? All right. Now, I can't see what you can see, and you didn't create a user for me. So, do you see on the admin interface a way to manage the users, or do we need to still register with the Django admin? I think we'll need to register right here, our user model. Yeah, and if you do see it, just create me a dummy user. But if not, we need this code right here. I'm just going to copy and paste this, and makes it easy. So our imports, we have the Django imports up top, then we have our model import here, and then we're going to just register that. Now if you refresh your admin page, you should see a new block there with user management section. And you can create a new user. You can just call it Briley and just do a really simple password. This is going to validate though, so it has to conform to the validation rules. In the command line, you can bypass the validation, but through the admin UI or the regular user registration forms, it's more strict. Oh, this is just getting to the time where I'm out of tea. So yeah, you can just send me the password in Whisper, I suppose, would be fine. I see that you're calling the user add page. Field error, unknown fields, last name, first name. Okay, there's a little bit of a problem here. Yeah, dang it. So it's still looking. Let me just double check here. Because we were able to successfully drop out. The last name and first name field. So what we need is a custom user model manager. No problem. You can see this is like actually a pretty challenging thing, and we're doing it by the books. We're doing it up front. The first thing we do in starting the project. It's a little bit more tricky later on, but once we're past this hurdle, we'll be good to go, and we can just start writing features. There's some gotchas though. We need to define a manager, I believe. I just got to think for a second. You don't do this very often, so it's kind of not something that maybe sticks with you. Yeah, this is for when you want to add features, but so what's happening is the Django form probably showed you a first name and last name field, because it's kind of hard-coded to do that. And you submitted it, but we actually don't need it. Okay, so we're going to just define a custom model admin. And we'll define this in admin py since it's related. So instead of using, if we look at the Django user admin, I think we'll see what the problem is. And you can see it's got these field sets defined, which are essentially groups of fields. That makes it easier for the user to fill it out. And then you have things grouped kind of logically, and you can see the first name and last name fields are in here by default. We actually don't want that, so and that's the source of this error. So I'm just going to see if there's a different class we can inherit from, but if not, we're just going to define it. It's not a big deal. So we basically don't want this line anymore, and we're going to define a class here called user admin. By convention, we're just adding admin on the end of it, and inheriting from model admin, which gives us some fields we can override in the way it displays these fields on the admin page, like in the table view or in the edit form and things like that. And now we just need to essentially look at our model. And in fact, I could almost just copy and paste these field sets without, just so we have a nice layout. So let me just do that. If I come back here, jump over to user admin and hit F12. The cool thing about working with open source projects and having a nice IDE is this code navigation lets you learn more deeply how the code works and borrow patterns and override things from within. So from within this user admin, I'm going to grab these field sets. Hopefully this is enough. Oh, a Google Hangout. Oh, my bad. Yeah, I guess that is kind of confusing, isn't it? Let's see if this works. If not, we'll just do this plain fields definition, and I hope Django will just generate the form. It just won't be so probably nicely nested. Control C. Yes, we've been scaffolding the initial project, and we're making some good progress. So we just don't need this personal information. That's the one thing I've learned in general with privacy and general data protection regulations, GDPR kind of stuff, is don't collect the information if you don't need it. First rule. We decided a username is useful for social features, but we'll still need to collect an email for communication, password resetting, things like that. And we're trying to stick as close to the way Django does things by default, but we're having a little bit of troubles figuring things out. Okay, see Max, if you refresh the add user form, crap. No problem. 1 second. We're not using localization, so sorry. 1 second. Yeah. So I just need to import this. Oh, I suppose we'll want to localize our app, won't we? So might as well just. All right. Now we should be able to refresh the admin form. What that error was is this underscore here is like a prefix to allow us to get text from a localization database, and you pass in the function like a name of a string, and it'll get you the localized version of that string. So Django's admin interface is localized by default, and I guess we can just inherit from that localization here. All right. thanks. I'll go see if I can log in. Nice. So, yep. And I have a super secret password that's been whispered to me. Whisper. Did I spell my name wrong? It's case sensitive. Is there an uppercase letter? Ah, gotcha. Makes sense. In Whisper, Max. Sent password. Just do an all lowercase password. You should be able to reset my password. Make sure everything's lowercase. Just get in the habit of that with, well, I guess that's not good advice. Sometimes you want to mix case to have a good password. But on development environments, keep things simple as possible. Yeah, it's no problem. We're going to be making lots and lots and lots of mistakes. So you can already see mistakes from both of us as, like a comedy of mistakes, a comedy of errors, I suppose. But it's all right. We're slowly making progress. And that's the good thing about having Git is if we make a huge mistake, we can just roll back a little bit. Okay. So, Kyle, how you been doing today? Sorry, I started the stream a little bit late. I don't know if that threw you off a little bit too. And I should have been more clear about the Hangout location. Although the link I sent you on, I believe, on Twitch, the Code Buddies link would be the official way of finding the link to these live coding sessions. I'm trying to do everything through Code Buddies. All right. And I've got the password whispered to me. And I'm not in. Make sure the account is set active. Is there a checkbox for is active? What the heck? All right. I don't know. Can you just whisper me your admin password? Is it super secret or... Because this is strange, and we don't really need to troubleshoot this too much more on the stream. I can kind of... I'll just make a pull request against your pull request and try to fix this error a little bit. Okay, so that's a good username password combo. It's suitable for development environment. Awesome, we're in. Never save. Quit asking me that. Oh, that's not cool, is it? Yeah, this is trippy. Of course it's not going to hash it. Oh, man. No. Wait, I'm thinking username. It should hash it. Yeah, we should definitely be hashing this. Django should be hashing this, in fact. We shouldn't even have to think about this. Man. You know what I think happened? Here's what I think happened. Django hashed it the first time, but when you went back to the user and you edited the user, you pasted in the unhashed version of it. And the hashed version is just a string. Oh, yeah, you deleted the account. That makes sense. Okay, let me just try that. This is really strange, but I think this Django should just do this correctly out of the box, so I'm not sure what happened. Ooh, I'm user number 1. And this is another thing. It should be treating this as a sensitive password. Did you give me a super user status? That might have been a problem. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? I think it has to have a certain number of characters. because this definitely should be hashed. That's it. So it could be that since I only had staff status, well, I should be able to log into the admin site. So let's try that. Save. Create a new incognito window and go to the admin site. Yeah. I mean, would it be expecting a hashed version of the user here? Okay. Let's go ahead and look a little bit more closely at the difference between the Django user admin and this really generic one that I defined and copy and pasted. There's probably some missing parts here. Man, it would be nice if we could just... But it should... Wait. Let me just double think. If we inherit from the user admin and override the field sets, everything else should work. Because what I did is just create an empty one, and it's not doing some key things like hashing the password. Yeah, okay, now we're getting some, this is expected invalid password form or unknown hashing algorithm. So yeah, all right, we're going to get over this hump. We're going to move to greener pastures where we'll get to do the fun part and create the features and ideas. See, this is, okay, yeah, this is why I'm warning you to use just a fake email, because it does post that stuff, and this is strange. That these are appearing. I'll have to override those in a while. Save and hashed. Nice. Yeah. That is just a pain in the butt. I'm surprised that after 14 years, Django hasn't made it slightly easier. Maybe they have, and maybe this wasn't so bad. We didn't have to like invent the whole wheel. We didn't have to invent and choose the hashing algorithm and stuff like that, right? So I guess and design the admin interface. But so now I can just go over here to my happy little Chrome browser, incognito mode, and I'm in like Flynn. Can you store function calls to variables? Yeah. Yes, you definitely can. If the function returns something, you can reference that value, the returned value from a variable, as a variable or whatever. Let me think. Yes, okay, so we're in. Let's go ahead and commit these changes. Commit and push, and we'll get your pull request open. Should we get rid of this first name and last name column? Just because I think we should. So let's learn more about customizing the Django admin. So we've got field sets and additional field sets. And then in the table, the list displays what we're after. We just, any reference of first name, last name, we're going to get rid of. We're going to override here. Because that's going to cause us some hassle. Where did it go? Man, this is really cool. Thanks, Max, for helping work through this whole little bit of an initial struggle and being so patient while we troubleshoot and learn the ropes. So now if I refresh this admin page, you can see not only are the list display, configures what columns will just be rendered in this table, and the search fields actually lets us search across multiple fields and even not virtual fields, I think, so that we can return relevant results. So typically, somebody might have I might have Briley as my username, but not in my email. Or I might have, you might be looking for Briley with an email. So this will just let us search across both of those fields. And then likewise, these filters are inherited from the user admin, but that lets us, get a little bit more precise with who we're showing, filter out inactive users, so we can bulk delete, stuff like that. It's pretty cool. Yep, well, that's the point, is we're learning together, basically. So, pair programming. Kyle, what are you working on? Are you doing some Python programming, Python experiments over there? See if I can find an example here of storing the return of a function as a variable. Well, here, they're doing this a lot. This is pretty common, that you just, rather than sometimes storing it as a variable, if it's just, you can just return it directly from the function. But basically, if the function returns anything and you call it, and you say variable name equals, call the function, whatever the output of that function is, whatever the return value of that function will be referenced from the, oh, cool. Yeah, we could make about 1 million tools. Okay, so that's going to be the main challenge, I think, is keeping the vision, keeping the project focused, and building the right tool, right? So cool, you're digging into the research. Would you mind sharing any articles that you find on GitHub, for example? You could create a new GitHub issue called Resources, or better yet, if you're comfortable editing the source code of the documentation site, you could actually create a resources page. I could create the initial scaffold of the page, and then you can edit it on GitHub even. Would that be cool, Kyle? If you want to help us document the project and build the roadmap a little bit more actively. I'll show you what I mean by that real quick. So yeah, I'm just going to minimize our pair programming session and hop over to my other visual code. And I'm just remembering, I'm committing directly to master. I won't do that. I haven't committed yet. Okay, well, that's cool. So, well, did you find some cool resources? I can do it. Our head is here. Okay, so fortunately I haven't committed, so I just created a branch. I'll commit to it. So we've started to, I mentioned this at the beginning of the stream. And in order to try to keep us focused and building useful things, I'm going to follow this approach called impact mapping. There's a book. This book's available on LeanPub or gojko.net. Gojko, I believe, is the name of the author. That's the name of the author. I believe I'm pronouncing it correctly, pronouncing it wrong. The cool thing about this approach to development is it keeps you focused on tangible goals. Yeah, thanks for saving the link, Max. Perfect. The books might even be freely available. Otherwise, it's worth it. It's a very short book. It's not many pages, and it's almost as many pictures as words. And especially since pictures are worth 1,000 words, there's many more picture words than word words. But in any case, the gist of it is that we define measurable goals, and then we come up with ideas for either features or kind of social engineering approaches that would help us meet those goals. So here's a couple of them. We want to get our tool, our website here, the online version of it, to have 50 unique monthly users. That's something we can measure and work towards, and then come up with ideas on how to get that going. Yeah, you can plow through some textbooks. Yes, so how do you normally store a bibliography, excuse me? Do you use a tool, for example, what is the name of that? Zotero? Would you be comfortable working with Zotero? Kind of a weird name. It's hard to remember. If so, let's create like a shared bibliography of resources at the very least. Something that we can... yeah, I do that. I love buying books. I don't know about eating them. I think I have enough fiber from all the oatmeal I eat. But, okay, so are you looking for book recommendations? Let me just think about it for 1 second. Okay, so I was disconnected from the collaboration session where the host went offline. No worries, I'm just going to close that down. Looks like we're done with the pair programming anyways. I'll be right back. I'm just going to go to my bookshelf and get a recommendation or two so you can see if they're available and affordable. Okay, I got 5 recommendations. 3 specific to sustainable urban development and 2 more broad and relating to systems, sustainability, and degrowth. So I haven't read all these books all the way through. I've read most of them partially. You can see my bookmark here. I'm a little bit of ways into it. So this is a cool book though. Resilient Cities, Overcoming Fossil Fuel Dependence. Make sure all the information's there. I just got this book in the mail. I haven't started. I'm going to work through Resilient Cities first, but it's called Redesigning Cities. What this book is good for, from my understanding, is giving you principles, practice, and implementation. So this is going to give us a little bit of insight into what it's like for an urban designer, what types of sort of tools might support the work they do. And it's got illustrations and examples, turning public housing into neighborhoods, stuff like, so you'll get a sense of what an urban designer faces and what kind of challenges they face and how we could design a tool that could support them. And in this other book, again, I've got through about 1/5 of this book, so you might be able to plow through these faster than me. It's called Sustainable Urban Environments. The authors of this book actually are also hosting a massively open online course called Sustainable Urban Development. send a link to that. Yeah, so if you can find particularly open access articles, that would be really good. And as an academic, if you could add them in a Zotero collection. I'll create a Zotero collection, and let's just start using this or something like it. Hopefully it's open source. Markdown is simple enough, but here's this Sustainable Urban Development course, TU Delft. It's by the authors, two of the authors, I think, of this book here. It's pretty good if you're more interested in watching videos and doing a few little exercises, and you can actually get a certification at the end of the course. For 46 euros you pay to take the tests, basically, and the tests are pretty low key. I mean, if you can almost just read the test answers and then kind of skim the video transcripts and get like a 70% or 80%. That's basically what I did. I watched, a number of them. They're definitely interesting. So, but I just was finding myself a little bit crunched for time, and I wanted to kind of progress through it. So let's just share this link in the chat. Oi, Kesty, where's the... All right, cool. So those are the 3 books. And if we form a bibliography, I can paste the IBAN numbers and then stuff like that. Now here's the other 2 books, aside from this impact mapping book, which I referenced twice, but this is an excellent book. It's called Thinking in Systems by Daniela H. Meadows. This book was actually published posthumously. She died in the process of writing it, but there's a lot of diagrams, and when you think about it, urban environments and ecosystems they're giant interrelated systems of organisms and flows of energy and materials, and this Thinking in Systems book gives you a really interesting and simple framework for like describing these really complicated systems and the interactions between the sort of the entities, the components, like terminology like sinks, sources and sinks. Like you got a source of some kind of material or energy coming in, and it gets processed by different actors, and then it sinks out of the environment or into different places that it's stored or sequestered, like carbon. You have carbon sources, emissions from vehicle tailpipes, and sometimes that gets sequestered in forests or urban forests or urban, in any case, greenery. I'm losing my words, so it's almost time to end this stream. And the last one is this. It's called Degrowth and Sustainability, No Nonsense Guide. It's pretty short and easy read. It's a small book. And I think a big part of sustainability boils down to we need to lose this idea that we have to pursue perpetual growth. We have to get over that, and we got to not just expect some new technology is going to come along and save us, or a more efficient solar or something like that's going to come along. But we actually need to look critically at our our patterns of consumption, population growth, things like that. Really difficult conversations, and not in a way that's going to harm people, but in a way that allows us to slow down a little bit the growth impulse of our society. For example, population can be controlled through education and empowering women, and I think financial equality. A lot of that will contribute to reduced demand of the Earth's resources. And we got to look at our lifestyles and things like that. And so sustainable urban design is just a part of it. And essentially the urban environment can support sustainable lifestyles without mandating that people take the decision into their own hands and eat healthy and sustainable diets or recycle. If you design the environment so the rules are just natural and effortless, I think that's a much better way to go than expecting every single person every hour of the day to make sustainable decisions when we've got so many other factors in our minds. Nice. That's a pretty good one. Heck yeah, you can always tell a joke, Max. So yeah, that's my little diatribe. Those are some recommendations. By the way, there's this controversial movie out that was just released by Michael Moore called Planet of the Humans. And yeah, I don't wholesale agree with probably anything that's published. You should always think critically. But there's some really interesting points that documentary raises. And I think it's kind of touching base on this same thing about degrowth and about the reality we're facing, that we live on a finite planet and we're pushing the boundaries. Our species is is proliferating just so on such a massive scale and in such a short time span. It's a blink of an eye, just like 100 years. Our not only our population level, but our impact in terms of consumption per capita has just skyrocketed, just an incredible amount. So we really need to, I agree, focus on degrowth. And yes, maybe some kind of green energy solutions and manufacturing processes will be able to help us reduce our footprint. But I think fundamentally we need to get out of the market capitalist ideology. And that's, I think, the thesis of this movie. So again, I don't agree with every point it makes, but it's definitely a compelling movie to watch and discuss and debate. And this certainly has some very prominent activists who are engaging with Michael Moore about it. So, Naomi Klein, for example, some very knowledgeable and respectable ecological activists. So I will also acknowledge that Vandana Shiva is featured in the film very briefly, and I think her point kind of echoes this broader idea about sustainable agriculture and not being fossil fuel based and getting off of fossil fuels and reducing consumption, and the idea that most of the biofuels that are produced, well, they're just relying on industrial agriculture and deforestation just the same, so they're not essentially a sustainable panacea that we're hoping for them. And likewise, the processes involved in manufacturing solar and wind turbines and essentially solar towers, they're also very energy consuming, and we've got to just be able to look at this holistically and acknowledge these kind of hard truths that we face. Yeah, and just adapt. I don't have any answers, but it's definitely worth watching. You can have access to the Urban Studies Journal. Okay, that's pretty cool. Yeah, so if you, where do you recommend, Kyle, that we kind of compile a list of resources? Is there a way you're comfortable working, like a Word document or something like that? That would be cool. Or a collaborative documentation site, Google Doc or whatever. And I'll just link it into our README so that we at least have a shared basis for essentially creating a bibliography of inspiring works relating to this project. So I'll put these back on the shelf. If you want, I can type the names in the chat. I don't know if that would help. The thing is, I don't want to just be spamming with Amazon links and stuff like that, so it's kind of tricky. Okay, a Google Doc would be fine. But then in the video, they're not so easy to link or whatever. Yeah, it's whatever. Sustainable urban environments. Ecosystem approach. I will also see if I can find a Vandana Shiva book, because she's a really remarkable activist. Designing Cities. Principles, practice, implementation. And then we've got Thinking in design systems. I think that's about it, and we're just looking at this impact mapping book. J-K-O-A-D-J-I-C. I hope I spelled that right. It's pretty interesting name. Maybe it's, I'm not sure. Yeah, Kyle, that's a good idea. And to the extent possible, let's keep it up at the level of the concepts that are directly relating to the work. And what I mean by that is not have people jump through too many mental hoops. We should use terminology that's familiar and then model our data internally to reflect that. And you probably are already on that wavelength. But the reason I think that's important is this is a user-centric project, and if we get too sort of like data or implementation specific, we're just going to create another GIS tool probably, and there's plenty of those open source GIS tools. So we're taking a user-centric approach here so that we come from the concept and the user needs inward instead of the implementation details outwards. So data is sort of an implementation detail. So that's all the reason I'm zeroing in on the use of that word. But yeah, so I generally think that's a good. So are you going to create just one Google Doc for this, references and data concepts, for example? Key concept. It's basically like an ontology in a way, but not without being too like academic. We're just trying to be. We're defining like a collection of ideas and concepts that are in common relation to the practice of urban design. All right, cool. Eventually, we're going to move it off of the Google Doc. But for now, let's start there, and then we'll kind of warm up a little bit on how to use Git and GitHub, or at least some collaborative place. Because the problem with working at Google Doc, there's a couple of them, but one is it's semi-private. It's hard. It's really cool because it's interactive. But the other one is it's not explicitly licensed. So could you add a license? Working with Git, what does working with Git entail? Is that what you mean? It's really not too bad in some ways, like to take a couple steps in the direction. There is definitely some pain points with Git, but you see, if I'm looking at one of these markdown files on GitHub, we can probably find an easier way to do it, but there's this little pencil icon. So you could compose a bunch of stuff in Google Docs or whatever and just paste it in here and then click save, commit changes. Just make sure, and I'll enforce this with a rule I'll apply on the branch, but create a new branch. Branching is the cool part. What does the tool entail? We don't know yet. I'll kind of hint at a couple of ideas I have for it, and I think I've described it a little bit, but we're basically making a tool to do two things. One is to catalog, I think this will be the first place we focus, catalog design patterns for sustainable urban environments. This is a common idea in software development and architecture already, the idea of design patterns. And these are just common practices for solving certain problems. Yeah, Max, can you do it in Markdown first? Yes, please. And actually, I just realized the Markdown files should go here on this repository. And all you got to do is create a new. It's really just a text file with a .md extension, and doesn't really matter. So you can create a new file here and paste some stuff into it. Here's the link to the repo. Just work in a branch. And yeah, it's not as nice as Google Docs, which allows real-time collaboration. So if you're more comfortable with that, it's cool. I just need it. We need an explicit grant of license, and the Google Docs doesn't have that. So if you'll, in the Google Docs, paste this text in there, then we're good to go. I just want to make sure everything is open source from the get-go and that we're not infringing or even stepping on each other's toes. So to apply this to your work, or use the license in your own material. And it is, a Google Doc is on the web, but essentially if you add this, text, we should be good to go. It's an explicit grant of permission, and any contribution to that Google Doc, I think, would be reasonable due diligence. Can I get messaged all the books, titles, or links? Yeah, the ones I mentioned earlier. Max, sure. I'll just do that now. Yes, all right. One, two, three, four, five. I missed one, didn't I? Oh, yeah. I just hadn't copied it in uppercase. All right, there you go. Nice. All right, just one more time, I'll reiterate that we can use whatever tools you're comfortable working with, but in order to contribute the work to this project, we have to explicitly grant license. So, and I can't simply copy and paste a Noodle Tools document with integrity. So if you'll just use whatever tool you want to archive those and contribute your work to this repository, we can do that another day. But yeah, just go ahead and start your work there. And all you got to do here, I'll just show you how it works. You create a new file. In fact, I'll just do it. I don't do it because I'll do it over here. In the docs folder, you create a new file, references, or bibliography or something like that. What would we call it? Bibliography, references? Something like that. Or resources, was that more appropriate? Yeah, no, that's cool. You can use the tool, but what you create with the tool is separately licensed. If you use a pencil as a tool to write on a napkin, that actually what you've written on the napkin is copywritten. You are the sole copyright owner of that creation. It's taken a fixed or tangible form. And I can't take a picture of that and use it without your explicit permission. By the way, copyright law works. I mean, technically I can, but I would be essentially violating or infringing on your copyright. So when we contribute to this open source project, I need an explicit grant of license so that everything we do here and I know you're on this wavelength already, but I'm just, we have to be explicit so that every contribution is licensed. So basically, should I create no, just resources, rename this. Where it is, where's the rename? Okay. Just let me do a couple things, and then we'll get this set up. And this is a good start for our impact. With these, push, it's going to ask my password. That's all right. This sense of uncertainty you're feeling, Kyle, is perfectly natural. We don't know that answer to that. That is going to emerge through our process of exploration, experimentation, research, and development. This is a greenfield project. It's brand new. I've got a few ideas, and as we collaborate a little bit more, I'll explain those ideas in more in depth. But really, this shouldn't just be my idea. So you're here just as your co-creator here. Your ideas are just as relevant as mine. So there's a lot of uncertainty, but we can just be cool with that. 1 second, let me just push this up there. Yeah, so another thing I'll mention, Kyle, is that play to your strength, and you're already doing this. You've got a research and mathematical background and orientation, and you're already digging in to the research, and in time there will be some more mathematical and analytical type tasks that might appeal to you. So just whatever appeals to you, that's where you're needed. That's where your help is most needed on this project. So creating this bibliography of resources is a great start. And that's going to give us a shared vision. It's not just my vision that way. And we don't have to decide yet what type of tools will be developed. This is the cool thing, is we could just take it one step at a time. Let me create this pull request. And we'll get into pull request review later, but I'm just going to go ahead and merge this. And delete the branch. And we're just over 2 hours. I'll try to keep this a little bit short. Yeah, I hope, Kyle, that my response didn't seem too flippant, but I just want to say, affirm that you're helping steer this project. So none of us really know exactly what will come of it. So essentially, just share a link either via email or, let's see, because we want to include Max. We want to make sure that Max can also get access to that information. But where it needs to go at the end of the day is this resources MD for these articles and stuff. And if you're comfortable, just right on GitHub, you can just click that pencil and paste your materials right there, and just create a new branch. And describe what you did. That should be it. But I didn't actually change anything, so you'll have some changes. That's about it. It's just a text editor, nothing fancy. You don't have to worry about the markdown. Brief commit message, create a new branch. We're good to go. Yeah, and believe me, that takes just practice. There's a lot to GitHub. There are different things, even different layers of the cake there. The main thing that I think it takes is just confidence to try something and not be afraid of breaking things. And I'm pretty good at fixing some problems we've encountered with Git over the years. We've had some pretty messy situations. So yeah, there's no harm done, no shame in the game. Just having confidence is the important part. Yeah, and really Git and GitHub are kind of the de facto way to collaborate on software right now, on open source software in particular. So yeah, this knowledge is going to serve you. Even in academia they have a lot of open source projects on GitHub. Cool beans. All right, how's everyone feeling? How are you feeling, Max? Are you still around there? How are you feeling, Kyle? Overwhelmed? Uncertain? Hopefully you're not feeling worried or anything. It's cool to take a little bit at a time. We're already making some nice progress. We've got a lot of people who have tuned in to the channel. Yeah, I'm glad to hear that. Max, thank you, Max, really for scaffolding this project today. Let's see, we'll get your pull request merged really shortly. Off stream, I'll just handle that, and I'll do a little bit of configuration on the repo. Likewise, I'm going to deploy these. Actually, I should just do these right now, shouldn't I? Make docs, because this is pretty cool. GH deploy the latest version of our. Let me enter my password. Latest version of our docs should be available now at Sustainable Urban Design Space. And we've got a couple of, I think it did it again. It's just going to give me a little bit of a hassle. Git pull, I see. One second, sorry. I should do. All right. So you can already see that it's not, there's going to be troubles with Git. It's just be forewarned, but it's not a big deal. And it's mainly, this is my mistake. All right, there's just lots of little ways you can make simple mistakes, but you know what I think is happening is this this GH deploy tool is actually somehow reconfiguring the settings for our GitHub page. It's removing the custom domain because we're getting a 404, and now my custom domain is not there. Strange. But if I refresh it, just give it a little bit of time. Seems like we're good. Maybe use the command line setup. I did use the command line to scaffold the project. What I'm thinking is there's a configuration option here in make docs, MK docs or whatever, make docs, about the custom domain. And I just haven't read the documentation fully. So you got theme. I think there's just going to be a custom domains under deploying docs. Okay, so I just need to do one additional step. You need to add a CNAME to the root of our docs directory. File must contain a single bare domain. All right. Yeah, it's again user error. Most of what I do, most of the errors I encounter are just something I didn't read carefully, or yeah, pretty much. New file CNAME. I'm just going to commit this to master. Since we're right on the stream, but yeah, that's a bad habit. It updated and looks really nice. Oh, excellent. Yes, and we got linkies. Okay, so yeah, that's our next step of the journey is to work in 2 parallel tracks. One is kind of doing continuing these initial Python Django experiments, and I think I know of some more low-hanging fruit features type things that we can just get started on to work towards our initial impact goals, which is attracting visitors to the site and maybe attracting some initial contributors to the site. So in the next session, we can dig more into that. I don't have a specific day in mind. At the earliest, this week, my only day available is to stream is Thursday. So it's either Thursday or just next week. So I'll try to keep you in the loop, Max and Kyle, with a little bit more heads up, advance notice type thing via email. Great. So the parallel tracks. A little bit of Django experimentation, a little bit of documentation and research, finding resources. So Max, are you more oriented right now on the Python Django development? And Kyle, it sounds like you're good to go on the research-oriented track, and then we'll kind of touch base on those tracks. They'll merge in and out. And the research is going to kind of guide the project to a large extent. And we're going to need to conduct user research at some point soon, but I'd like to have something kind of prototypal before we get out the door. Django and Python's perfect. That's right where we're at. All right. Well, I'm going to go ahead and I better wrap up this session. I'm getting kind of tired, and I haven't eaten dinner yet. So thanks, Max. Thanks, Kyle, for hanging out. Thanks to the viewers on Twitch. And if you're viewing this on YouTube, do stop by codebuddies.org. Get involved with this and other types of hangouts. There's a lot of other topics going on. If you're interested in doing any open source development, the codebuddies.org platform is currently being rewritten with Python and Django on the back end. There's an experiment, prototypal development going on there, and a front end client being written with React. So if you're new or experienced with either of those tools and you want to contribute to an open source community, stop by codebuddies.org or github.com/codebuddies. Thanks for checking out our Sustainable Urban Development, Sustainable Urban Design Space hangout, and hope to see you more around the community. Stay safe out there.